God says, okay, I'm not the one that caused all your problems. You and your family did. Okay? And here's why. And now I'm going to prove to you this, and this is what he's telling Ahab. Not only did you do this, but I'm going to prove to you that there is one God. And that the gods that you honor, gods with small g, the Asheroths and the Baals, these are all false gods. I'm going to prove it to you. Go get your 450 preachers of Baal and Asherah. Your best, bring me the best from all of Israel. Go through your whole country and bring me all of your best. 450 of them. And bring them right here on this mountain. And so Ahab is thinking, wow, 450 of mine against him? I'll take those odds any day. So he goes out and gets his 450. And we're going to find out what happens. So Ahab sent for all the children of Israel and gathered the prophets together on Mount Carmel. So I want you to get the picture. There's one mountain, Mount Carmel. And Elijah is up there, the man of God. And Ahab and Obadiah, and he sends out. And pretty soon, and who knows how long it takes, a week, 2 weeks, whatever it takes, 450 other people come, and Jezebel comes. And then other people are coming to watch. And this is one way, again, a crisis of faith. Now think about Elijah. When it's him and Ahab and Obadiah on the mountain, you know, he's talking pretty cocky, right? For those of you that have ever spoken public, when it's you against an audience, it's a little intimidating. Even if you're used to speaking in front of people, the bigger the crowd, the more intimidating it is. I went to a Billy Joel concert at the St. Louis Ball Diamond several months ago, on Father's Day, actually. Was that last Father's Day? Wow, I am old.
Actually, last this year's not here.
Anyway, so I was like 3 rows back from the front. It was awesome. We were down on the field. It was friggin' just awesome. And at some point during the concert, I happened to think about terrorism, and I thought, wow, you haven't looked around. So I looked around, and I realized I'm down on the field where the ball players play. Okay, and I looked up and I turned all the way around in 360 degrees, and all I saw was a mass of humanity. I don't know how many was there, but there was a lot of people. It was intimidating. And so I stood there and I thought, wow, what if I was one of 9 guys on this field? And I'm playing baseball, and I make a fumble, and I got 40,000 people booing me. How intimidating is that? So now Elijah is on the top of the mountain, and he's got 450 of these priests, plus all the audience, plus Ahab and Jezebel, who have the power to kill him, by the way. And it's him against all of them. Does his faith waver? And Elijah came to all the people and he said, so now he's going to talk to them. How long will you falter between 2 opinions? If the Lord is God, follow him. But if Baal, follow him. But the people answered him not a word. And by the way, you will always find that cowards do this. Then Elijah said to the people, I alone am left a prophet of the Lord, but Baal's prophets are 450 men. So he's saying, okay, so me, it's just little old me and God, and 450 of Baal's people. Therefore, let him give us 2 bulls, and let them choose 1 bull for themselves. They can choose whichever one. Cut it in pieces and lay it on the wood, but put no fire under it, and I will prepare the other bull and lay it on the wood, but put no fire under it. Then you call on the name of your gods, and I will call on the name of the Lord, and the God who answers by fire, he is God. Okay. Doesn't the Bible say, do not tempt the Lord your God? Isn't Elijah tempting him?
And, yeah, in a way, but I think he's wanting to prove that his God is more powerful and his God is real.
You're shaking your head no, tell me.
I don't think he's tempted.
I don't think it's
He's
tempting
showing-
him.
He's showing
I think
what
he
his
needs
Lord
his
can
Lord
do.
can do.
The difference is, the idea did not originate with Elijah. The idea originated with God. God said,
The Lord.
tell them to go do this,
Yeah,
and I'm going to arrive.
right.
If he had just said that on his own,
himself.
then he would be tempting God.
Okay.
Now, there is an example, and I want to tread lightly here, but and I don't remember the guy's name in the Old Testament, but he was just a lowly servant, and God comes to him and says, I want you to go lead the army, and he says, I'm just a lowly guy, and he says, okay, I'll do it if you'll prove to me that it's from you. I'm going to put this plant on my dresser, and I want you to put dew on the leaf and in the bowl, but nowhere on the dresser. So he wakes up the next morning and it's just like that. And he says, okay, I know that you did that, God. Okay, but I want to do it again, and this time I want you to put dew all over the counter and nothing on the leaf. And he does it again. Is that tempting God?
Well, yeah, because God's not telling him, he's telling God.
You could look at it that way, but here's what I've learned, and what God and I kind of worked out an agreement when I got saved, because I always heard people say, well, God spoke to me and said, blah, blah, blah. And whenever somebody says that to me, I always say, okay, great, have a great day, okay? And here's what we worked out. I'm not doing anything until I know that I know that I know that it's from you, and you know how to reach me. I'm not going to ask you how. I'm not going to ask you to do anything, except I know. Now, once I know that I know, there isn't any force on earth that'll stop me. And so whenever I feel like God has asked me to do something, I always wait, and he either shows up or it goes away. Prayer box ministry, I knew that I knew that I knew, and nothing stopped me. And God provided all the way through. There's a difference between tempting and asking for confirmation, or tempting and doing what God says. God told Elijah, you tell them this, and I'm going to show up. Let's see, where did I leave off? Oh, so all the people answered and said, it is well spoken. Now Elijah said to the prophets of Baal, choose one bull for yourselves and prepare it first, for you are many. And call on the name of your God, but put no fire under it. So what they're asking for is they're going to cut this bull up, put it on the fire, and they want their God to come and light the fire. So they took the bull which was given them, and they prepared it, and called on the name of Baal from morning until noon, saying, O Baal, hear us. But there was no voice. No one answered. Then they leapt about the altar which they had made. I want to ask you a question. So, if Baal is a god with a small g, and he always irritated the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, that tells me that Baal is from Satan. Would you agree? Okay. So if that's true, don't you think Satan can make a fire? Sure. Can't he?
Yeah.
Which reminds me of the story when Satan confronts God and says, well, you made Adam and Eve, I can make Bobby and Steve. And God says, okay, go ahead, let me see it. So if Satan goes to pick up the dirt, to make them from dirt like God did. And God says, oh, no, 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 no. We'll make your own dirt.
Yeah.
Ah. But if he was willing to do that with the dirt and he could make a man out of dirt, don't you think he can make a silly fire? Why doesn't Satan show up to make fire? See, I've never heard this preached on.
Because the Lord has more power than Satan.
But we don't see that here. What we see is they're calling on Baal, which is really they're calling on Satan,
Yeah, but Satan knows.
to start a fire.
That's not his will.
All Satan has to do is go, and there's a fire. Well, and they asked him for 12 hours, why didn't he show up? The answer is because that's the first part of the miracle. Satan can only do what God gives him permission to do.
Yeah.
It was ordained that particular.
Remember Job.
Yeah.
Remember, Satan has access to heaven. But he can only do that which is authorized from God.
Yeah,
God's not going to let
Satan-
him start a fire
Satan asked God with Job if he could do this.
right, and God says you can do that up to this point. Then he goes back and asks for an amendment, and God says, yes, you can do that up to this point. You can't take his life. So when Satan, I'm sure when Satan goes to God and says, hey, I need to show up here and start a fire, and God says, oh, I'm sorry, that's just not going to happen. And so if Satan goes ahead and tries to do it, God's just going to, just block it. This is not going to happen. God can talk the world into existence. He can certainly stop somebody from starting a fire. But I've never heard anybody preach about that. We always hear about what happens next, the next big thing, but nobody ever says, how come Satan doesn't show up to start the little fire? That's the first part of it. Let's see. So they cried aloud and cut themselves, as was their custom, with knives and lances until the blood gushed out of them. Okay, that's just insane. Which, by the way, do you know of any religion that does that today? They still do that. Islam.
Islam has
They cut themselves, they beat themselves, they even cut their kids' heads.
his children.
Yeah, and there's blood all over the place when they go through that. I don't know what the custom is, but they still do that. And when midday was past, they prophesied until the time of the offering of the evening sacrifice, but there was no voice, no one answered, no one paid attention. So they did it all day. These 450 priests of Baal and Asherah. They yelled and screamed and cut themselves and begged and pleaded for a whole day, and nobody answered, nobody showed up. No fire was lit. Now imagine if you're Elijah, you gotta walk around like a cock with his feathers spread right now, right? Then Elijah said to all the people, come near to me. So all the people came near to him, and he prepared the altar of the Lord that was broken down. And Elijah took 12 stones, according to the number of tribes of the sons of Jacob, to whom the word of the Lord had come, saying, now remember I said, this was not tempting God. God had told him what to do. And so here we see God stepping in. And so the word of the Lord had come, saying to Elijah, Israel shall be your name. Then with the stones he built an altar in the name of the Lord, and he made a trench around the altar large enough to hold 2 sheas of seed. And he put the wood in order, cut the bull in pieces, and laid it on the wood, and said, okay, before we say what he said, here's another thing I want you to see. Bless you. A lot of times, we as Christians want to put the entire responsibility for something happening on God. Well, God, you said you were going to take care of my finances, and now I'm facing bankruptcy. Okay? By the way, been there, done that. I know this for a fact. God always steps up, but he steps up at your ending. So what I mean is, so you have to ask yourself common sense questions when it comes to your finances. Have you cut your expenses as much as you can cut them? Have you streamlined? Have you cut out any excesses that you can cut out? You know, when you go through the budgeting process. And I've told this story before, but I'm gonna tell it again to people. When I first moved into my apartment and I took my job, I was making $7.50 an hour. Okay? 10 years ago, 12 years ago. And there was no budget in my budget. And it was the beginning of the year, I think, and I was having problems. And I sat down at my table and I did my expenses and I did my income and I went through and I had cut as much as I could, and there was just nothing left. And I finally leaned back in my chair and I took my paper and pen and I threw it on the table and I said out loud, God, I got nothing left. It's on you. I'm done. And I set it there and I went in, clicked on the TV, and I watched TV the rest of the night. The rest of the night. Forgot all about it. I got up the next day and I went to work. My boss called me in the office on my lunch hour. She said, Brian, me and the boss have been talking. We're going to give you $1 or something an hour raise, effective immediately. Wow. And it worked out to be just enough to cover my bill. You have to do all that you can do. So here we see God's going to step in and do a miracle. And Elijah knows that. But what does it say that Elijah does before God steps in and does his miracle? He prepares the bull, he prepares the altar, he prepares the wood, he put the wood in order, he cut the bull in pieces, and he laid it on the wood, and he said, fill four water pots with water and pour it on the burnt sacrifice. Okay, he's being a hot dog, okay? He's got everything prepared, and now he says, I don't want dry wood. I don't want good wood. I want you to go get 4 buckets of water and douse it with water. This is like making a hook shot from half court, okay? He's just being a weenie. But still, it's to prove a point. Then he said, do it a second time. Okay. Really? And they did it a second time, and he said, do it a third time. Now there's water floating, okay? There's water floating in the wood. The wood is doused. You made your point. So the water ran all around the altar, and he also filled the trench with water. So now the logs are soaking wet, the altar's soaking wet, there's water around the trench. And it came to pass at the time of the offering of the evening sacrifice, so this is a whole nother day, took him a whole day to get it ready, that Elijah the prophet came near and said, now he's done all this work for a whole day. Now he's going to ask for the miracle. Lord, just like I had done all the preparation for the budgeting that I could that day. All right? And then I said to the Lord, and this is what Elijah did. He did all that work for the day. Then he came to the Lord and said, Lord, God of Abraham, Isaac, and Israel, aka Jacob, let it be known this day that you are God in Israel, and I am your servant. Let me ask you something. Why does he pray that? This is God's prophet. He knows this. Why is he doing that?
So the others could hear him.
Absolutely. Because he's going to witness. Remember I told you crisis of faith. What if he just said, okay, let there be fire? Who gets the glory?
He's going to get that.
That's right. So now he has to take the crisis in faith and put himself out there. And he has to say, okay, I was kind of a hot dog, okay, we got all this water, okay, but I need you to step up and handle it, okay? But I want you to get the glory, not me. So now he prays so that all of Israel can hear him. I have done all these things at your word. Okay, he's reinforcing what I told you. He did all of these things because God told him, right? Hear me, O Lord, hear me, that this people who may know that you are the Lord God, and that you have turned their hearts again to you. Then the fire of the Lord fell and consumed the burnt offering, and the wood, and the stones, and the dust, and it licked up the water that was in the trench. He didn't just set fire. If you were there, he would have scared the tar out of you. Enough fire to suck up all that water, to burn the wood, to burn the offering, to burn the stones. God showed up with a vengeance. Now when all the people saw it, they fell on their faces and said, "The Lord, he is God, the Lord, he is God." And Elijah said to them, "Seize the prophets of Baal, do not let one of them escape." So they seized them, and Elijah brought them down to the brook Kishon and executed them there. But if God is such a loving God, he wouldn't send people to hell, would he?
That's their choice, if they go to hell, not God's choice.
My point is, people that are not from God, how many times have you heard that when you witness to somebody? And instead of answering your questions, they try to turn it around on you and they say, "I'm not worried about going to hell. If God is a true God, he's a loving God. And he's not going to send me to hell. He just killed 450 people." Let me ask you something. Does God love everyone? Think before you answer.
The Bible says he does.
The answer is no. Jesus says in the New Testament, you are either a son of God or a son of Satan. There is no in between.
But he wants everybody to be saved. He's what
Does he?
His will.
Then why did Jesus teach in parables? Jesus answered that question. Because if I teach plainly, then everybody will be brought to salvation. So obviously God did not want everybody brought to salvation. He wants his people brought to salvation. Now, that's a hard teaching, but look at it this way. I want you to think around the world. And I want you to think about all the churches that you know are from Satan. Okay? Voodoo, the Church of Satan, Islam. Those three right there is 1/3 of the population of the planet. They have made a choice of who their father is. Their father is either Jesus or Satan. If their father is Satan. Now, how many of you have read books about people that have gone to hell and come back? Have you ever read those? Every one of them I've read, and I've read a dozen of them. They all say that when they go down there, Jesus is always with them. And everybody in hell always says, "Forgive me, Lord, please bring me back." They're merciful, they're begging for forgiveness. And Jesus pays no attention. Why?
They made their choice.
Because their choices, now they're choosing because they don't like hell. When you choose on earth, you're choosing because you choose to follow Jesus. It's about the heart. It's not about the body. So when I said, does God love everybody? No. Why do you want, if you're God, why do you want somebody in your house, which is heaven, that is there strictly because you gave them an opportunity to not go to hell? They don't care about your son. They don't care about building the kingdom. They don't care about anybody else except saving their hide. Everybody would do that. Right? Wouldn't they? I mean, if you presented the gospel to somebody and you said, and you could prove to them, if you could take them by the hand and show them hell and say, this is where you're going if you don't do what I said, every one of them is going to say, absolutely, let me do that. They say the prayer, and then 3 months later, they're back in the bar. right? How many times have you seen that?